Kia ora whānau, how's it going? This is Lewa to go here. Hey, thanks for tuning into our channel. This is Word on Monday. This is a ministry out of Kaikoura Baptist Church and a ministry that we're doing here. Word on Monday is a series of teaching and videos that we've done. Well, I think this is my 80th one of these that I've done over this last year, where we're just trying to encourage Christians and believers of Jesus to follow him. Keep falling in love with him, keep spending time with him, and just grow in our relationship with him. And recently I've just started a series called Jesus Revealed, looking in the book of Revelation, and we're doing a series on what the book of Revelation teaches about Jesus and things that we can learn for our current days and times. I think this is my fourth or fifth clip on this so far, and we're still stuck in Revelation chapter 1. As we're going through the studies, more things are being revealed, and other areas like, I think I need to address that or deal with that. And so we're in chapter 1, and we're going to be looking at chapters 1 verses 12 through to 16. I did a corridor earlier or last time from 9 through to 16. And then I finished off with talking about the voice, and I thought, actually, I need to pick up the voice theme a little bit later on, because it's very important for us as we move forward. So we are in the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verses 12 through to 16, and let's read it together and enjoy what the Lord is saying to us today. Verses 12, I turned around to see a voice that was speaking to me, and when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands, and among the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man, dressed in a robe reaching down to his feet, and with a golden slash around his chest. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like blazing fire. His feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of rushing waters. In his right hand he held the 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a double-edged sword. His face was like the sun, shining in all its brilliance. I want to focus today on the idea of voice. The voice speaking to me. I turned around to see the voice. Now, I don't know about you, and I've mentioned this before. I hear a voice, but I don't see it. But here is John in the Spirit, worshipping Jesus, praising God, and he hears a voice, and he turns around to see it. Amazing. Turns around to see it. And then later on, verse 15, his feet were like bronze glowing in a furnace, and his voice was like that of rushing waters. Voices. Some of us have voices. Some of us don't know how to discern which voice to listen to. Some of us use our voice in different ways. But what I want to do today is have a look at the examples or the usage of the word voice throughout Scripture. Just to try to paint a picture of what might be going on in here, Revelation, because the usage of the voice crops up a lot within the book of Revelation. So we've seen here that John responds to it, and he sees the voice when he turns. And then later on down in verse 15, he sees he hears the voice and sees it, and it sounds like rushing water in regards to the explanation and the description of what the voice is like. Voice crops up a lot in the Bible. It's used 210 times. If you're looking through the NIV and Bible Gateway and do a bit of a voice search on voice, you'll see it pop up. 113 times of those are found in the Old Testament, and 97 times in the New Testament. The voice and its usage can either relate to the voice of people speaking to each other, the voice of the heavenlies. So you might have archangels or angels or sephrons, or different descriptions of the servants in heaven speaking. As an example, when Joseph and Mary had their vision and dreams, the angel spoke to them, or when we're at the tomb, one of the angels spoke to the ladies that were there to give testimony that Jesus had risen. And then the third area is around God speaking to us. And so in the New Testament, for example, of the 97 times that the voice is used, 35 of them can be found in the book of Revelation. Of that 35, 16 of them relates to Jesus or God speaking. So in Revelation, you got 35 occasions where the voice has been used. It's either describing something, it's either angel speaking, or it's either Jesus speaking. 16 of them are Jesus and God speaking, to either giving instructions to John or giving instructions to the angels. Or it's the angels, when they open the seals, they declare something to John, and then John writes it down. So you have this picture of voice used to give instruction, the voice used to demonstrate something. And so another way, if you want to do a bit of a topical study, you find voice comes up around about eight different ways within Scripture. It's either the voice of God, the voice can reflect the character of God, the voice can have a relationship to earthquakes, the voice can reflect the fear of God, the power of God. It can reflect things like symbolism, a relationship to invitation to participate. So I'll just go over a few of those just to give us a bit of a context. In relationship to the character, for example, the voice of God, this is demonstrated when you see in John 10:3 and 4, where Jesus is talking to his disciples about the sheep in the pen and the gate, and robbers and thieves, and he's talking about here in relationship to that his voice sets a standard, or it sets a character relationship. In other words, any other voice other than Jesus that speaks to us in the John account is either representing a thief or a robber. But the relationship that you and I are to have with the voice, in other words with Jesus, is that we are to develop a discipline where we're able to discern and understand what the voice is saying to us. In other words, Jesus is the gatekeeper. He's the one, the keys to the door, and we'll see this later on down in Revelation chapter 3. He is the great shepherd, and the sheep know his voice. And as I mentioned, any other voice is either a thief or a robber. There's an intimacy with it. This idea of earthquakes. Elijah, for example, in 1 Kings 19:11, we have this occasion where the prophet Elijah, who's one of the great prophets of the Old Testament, in fact, he's one of the, John the Baptist is likened to the prophet Elijah. He has this encounter where he proclaims a great miracle where fire comes down from heaven and it burns up the bull and burns up the wood and burns up all the water, and then he kills all these prophets of Baal, these false prophets. And the next minute, the scene, you see him running away from Jezebel, the false queen. That here is this Philistine, this Baal worshipper, false queen, whom was exerting power and authority over a king and wanted to destroy Elijah, wanted to kill him. She eventually dies through her own edict, and dogs eat off her flesh as she falls down from the roof of the building. But in this scene here in 1 Kings 19:11, we see Elijah. He's hiding in a cave, fearful, and where he ran from the event was from North Israel down to south. So it's a big decoy that he did. He ran to get away from her and her influence. But it's in the midst of this, God said to him through his still small voice, I'm not in the fire, I'm not in the earthquake, I'm not in the wind, I'm not in those big dramatic things that you see out there, but I'm in the still small voice. So again, there's an imagery here when God speaks to his people and to any of those who have ears to hear, there's not only the speaking of it, but it also reflects the posture that you and I are to have behind it. Here is this posture that Elijah had to have: still and small. The gate is narrow. There is this process of where we're coming into a relationship with Jesus and growing with him, is that our heart attitude has to be still and has to be small. We have to humble ourselves before Jesus and come into his presence. In relationship with a demonstration of the power of God, we see, and we've seen it in these passages here, the power of God can be seen in regards to the demonstration of his voice, is likened that to Psalm 29 verses 3 and 5. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty water. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. Psalm 68 verse 33. To him who rides across the heavens, the ancient heavens, who thunders with his mighty voice. And Ezekiel 43:2. And I saw the glory of God of Israel coming from the east. His voice was like the roaring of rushing waters, and the land was radiant with his glory. In this case here, we see this image where there's something dramatic about to happen. We were coming back from Auckland last Tuesday and coming through that storm, and we hit the Brenduans. The day before when we came down, there's some little waterfalls, if you notice it when you're driving down the Brenduans on the southern face of it. There's actually waterfalls there. And but on the way back, they were raging. In other words, there was so much rain, the road was covered, and we had got through, and the road transport folk were about to close the road or turn it down to one lane. But the water was rushing. It was rushing out, and I did a video of it. And so there's this explosion of water that goes out and rushes out, and it cuts its way through the mountain. It can't be stopped. So in this sense here, this imagery that we're getting of the voice of God is like that. It's not going to be stopped. You'll hear it, and then it comes. You'll hear it, and then all of a sudden it just flows. It flows out. I like that image, that God is speaking and it sounds like rushing water, like thunder. In other words, you can't miss it. There are times in our lives where God just whacks you with a 4x2, and when he speaks to you, and it just comes out. It's amazing. And then lastly, we see also in regards to the symbol, the voice speaks in regards to, it's like an invite. He invites people to participate in what God is doing. And this is exemplified in Isaiah 6 verse 8. Then I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And the prophet Isaiah responded, here am I, send me. So we need to be aware of the context of what's going on in Revelation with this background information about the voice. The voice can also be associated with a trumpet. This is found 10 times in the scriptures, 3 in the Old Testament and 7 in the New Testament. In the New Testament, the association of voice and trumpet is found in 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and Hebrews 12:19. And in the book of Revelation, we see it in verse 10 of chapter 1, verse 1 of chapter 4. And here we have this image where John, there's a turning from chapter 3 to 4 where we've now shifted the lens, and we're in the throne room. Or John's been invited up into the throne room, and John sees this, and he goes, after this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven, and a voice I had first heard speaking to me like a trumpet said, come up here and I'll show you what must take place. And there are a number of other occasions that the angels, in regards to the declaration of the trumpets throughout Revelation, they're announcing things to happen. So this imagery of the voice associated with trumpet, unlike the waters, where it's demonstrating that God's about to do something and it's the power of God, here there is a sense of something, or in a couple of ways. There's a declaration of intent. Something's about to happen in relationship to a call to something, and in most cases there's a call to judgment in regards to trumpet. A trumpet can also be used in relationship to a call to war. It's grabbing your attention and say, hey, you need to take notice of this. This is something that's important. So you might hear on Anzac Day the bugle and the sign of the sound of the last post, the call to those who have acknowledged those who have passed on, and then the reveille. There's this image where a trumpet sounds. Now, Feast of Trumpets is a religious festival that Jewish people had. And there's this association between the sound of the trumpet and the return of the groom. On the 100th sound, the groom will return, or in this case, what God is doing will be fulfilled. We saw that in Jericho, the trumpets were sound as they went around the city and blew the shofars. In other words, there's this declaration of piercing their sound, piercing everything that's going on. Hey, I need to grab your attention, listen to what's going on and what's about to follow out, or it's about to unfold with regards to the trumpet. What else do we have here? The voice, as we've talked about. The voice of the Lord is speaking, and so we've got all these imageries, in the New Testament, in Revelation and in the New Testament, but in Revelation we have 35 accounts when the voice is used. 16 of them are when God is about to do something, or is declaring something, or telling John something. So as we go through, take note of those voices. Ask yourself, who is saying it? Who is speaking? And who is he speaking to? What is he saying? What's being declared? Is it a power encounter? Is it a small whisper of correction? Is it something where it's trying to get your attention, like the trumpet case? It's like, right, you need to know what's about to follow. This is what's happening. It's an important thing, as we'll see throughout Revelation, that the voice of God speaks, or the voice of the angel speaks. The voice of judgment, the voice of correction, the voice of encouragement, the voice of praise. You see later on the 24 elders, you see the hosts in heaven, they're worshipping. There's a voice that comes to it. There's a sound that comes into it. We need to take note of what God is doing here in the book of Revelation in relationship to his voice, or the voices that we hear. Whānau, this is the last part, hopefully, on chapter 1. Next time we're going to move into chapter 2, and we're going to look at chapters 2 and 3 and just go through the message to the churches. Thank you for joining us. I hope this is helpful. If you've got any jungle tips or anything, any questions, please do write them in the comment section. I'm happy to have recorded all and reply to them. But thank you for joining us today. This has been Rewai Te Kahu on Word on Monday, and we're exploring Jesus as revealed in the book of Revelation. So thank you again. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.